week 2, day 2. It's Wednesday, so we're going to continue on where we picked up, and we're in the reading for what's called Unit 2 in the handout, or as I call it, the textbook. And so we're going to be we'll be going a little bit further than that, and then we'll try to work this through the other material that we want to get covered. So we had kind of finished up with this one in class on Monday, and I was talking about slow speed control. And I'll be honest, I think it got better as I did 3 of those, and there's just a lot of stuff going on. So I wanted to explain as we look at this slide, and I think I got this message over to the 2 o'clock section and the last section of the day, that the 3 o'clock section, but I don't know about the 12. And so my point was, and I don't want to belabor this, but as you're reading the text, and it's so important, I know I say that a lot, but what I was trying to do here, I was trying to take and say, well, this is how I would read it, and I would pull out, these things, that this is, speed is the reduction of speed is the important thing. And yeah, you can use Doppler logs. And so I was extracting this, and I was extracting all these things. And we got down here to excessive speed, and it talks about it being insidious, and you were losing effective control. So what I was trying to apply, that as you read this text and look at these little nuggets here, I'm not going to do this every single time. I mean, you can read this stuff yourself, but take your highlighter and take each paragraph and pull some of those key words out of there, because that's going to be something that you can use in your answer on an exam. When I talk about, what did chapter 2, unit 2, what did that talk about with regards to excessive speed? And so you can pull that out. And then, I'm including this bullet in here. It's pretty easy to add speed when you need it, but it's darn difficult to knock the speed off when you don't want it. And that was really the point. It's just a way that I would like you to be thinking about this beyond just sort of scanning it, and I want you to internalize those words. We went on to this next slide. This is, we got this far, and what happened, here we were coming along the track. We were going to the dock, and we're up here. I think we're at 6 knots when we start here. We're down to 3 knots. It does say, you're well over 3 knots, and I think I gave you a rule, be stopped engines and be at really slow speed when you're 3 or 4 boat lengths away from whatever berth. And if you're a 26-foot double-ended Deborah Ellen, or if you're a 400-foot, 500, whatever you are, think about yourself as a boat length. And be stopped engines, not stopped dead in the water, but be stopped engines to start to assess your control. This poor fella didn't do it. Now I want to change this up a little bit. I'm going to give you a different image of this slide. So here's the different image, and so maybe make it more like a tabletop simulation. And so here we have tenths of a mile, 1/10, one cable, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then we're at that 8 cables off, 8.5 cables, 8.5 tenths of a mile off. And by the way, 6,076 feet, right? Everybody got that? Length of a nautical mile. Come on, you're mariners. So we're going to come in and look. We got a berth up here. There's a vessel about the size of us, and we're a 60,000-ton tanker. There's a 75,000-ton tanker right up here. There's a tug and a barge made up here, and there's the barge, and that's about a 25. It doesn't have as much draft, so it's about 25,000 tons of probably not even that, tied up at the other end. So we have to get in here, and we need to get ourselves into this dock, and it's going to be tenuous. There's lots of shoal water. There's shoals here, and there's shoals that come in here. So we don't have a lot of playroom. It's a narrow channel when we're coming in. So we want to be coming in with slow speed. In that first example, the ship's coming in, it's at 5 or 6 knots, and then we start backing down. But the thing, as soon as the ship starts to back, you start to lose control. Yeah, you start to lose speed. You start to lose control because you're losing speed. You know, ships don't steer well. Any vessel doesn't steer well when you're dropping your speed off, so you have to be more on your toes. And transverse thrust starts to have a play. It starts to walk. Let me do it this way. You know, the vessel wants to walk off to port. It wants to pull that stern to port. So let's put that underway. So here we are, you know, 4 or 5 knots. We're coming down. We start to slow down. Now we're at 3 knots. We're still coming in. The captain's thinking, well, I might be going a little bit too fast. We're coming in. So I'm going to give it some stern power. It's not having much effect yet. It takes a while. This is a big ship. It's got a while to make. And as you do that, you'll notice ever so slowly, I'm slowing down. I'm not pointing towards where I want to be. I'm at the whim. The text, as you read it, would say you are at the whim of the transverse thrust, the wind, the current, and so on and so forth. And as you go out here, you're more and more pulling off, and you're out of position. And that was just a bad way. It's hard to get from here into here when you're pointed at this direction here. And that's what the author was making that point. That's what they were trying to say. There's a better way of doing it. And it's these short pulses of a stern and short, and if you need to, a short pulse of a head. So let's look at that. I'm going to bring it back here and we'll pause. So if you read through this with my little comments here, so now we're not starting this whole thing out at 6 knots. We're starting it already. We're already at 3 knots when we're 1 mile away. And really what this process is, we're coming through and we're just stop engine, a short kick ahead in order to shape yourself up if you needed to get yourself back on course, and you're dead slow ahead, or you are minimal speed you're putting onto it. And I'm not talking about necessarily the speed itself, but I'm talking about the engine revolutions, a little kick ahead to shape it up. Here's the astern bell. And look at that. 1, 2, 3, about 3 or 4 ship lengths back, you are going to be getting yourself very, very slow. You're knocking all your speed off, and you're just going to be interspersing. At some point, that captain is going to be at a stop engine and just seeing what they have to deal with. Short kicks ahead interspersed with stop engines. A short backing bell, not a whole lot, you don't need it, you're going slow. And that was the point. You know, I was out on the lake, and I'm looking at the lake now, and I'm looking at the dock and the boat out there, and I was trying to teach somebody last week. I was trying to teach them how to come in. I've got this boat lift, and it's a very narrow, some of you know what a boat lift is. And I was doing the same thing. I was just giving these short kicks ahead, and knowing where the rudder was, knowing where it's an outboard engine on that one, but knowing, you know, when I gave that kick ahead, you always need to think about where the rudder is. Is it midships? Is it going to be a little bit left? You want to know where your tools are. One of your tools is the rudder. So, you know, it doesn't matter if it was a boat like I've got out there sitting at the dock 16 feet with an outboard on it, or a big ship, short pulses ahead, and even some backing bell. You know, I'm clicking through that throttle back and forth, and you can do the same thing. You got to give it time for the engine to respond. Let's go on to the tabletop. So here we're going to, what's going to happen is we're only at 3 knots now. We're not at 6. And so we're coming in, we're stop engines. Maybe we start to drift off. So we give a little, starts to drift off like this. Maybe we give a little kick ahead with some right rudder. Not very long. Bring it, shape it back up. That's going to get a little headway going. Again, stop engines. You're going to slow down. You're going to slow down again. You're going to go slower than you think you probably should. You're going to feel, when you're driving the launch and you're driving anything, you're going to feel like maybe you're taking too much time. That somehow you're going to have this in your brain that a good captain, a good boat handler, a good ship handler should be able to do this quicker. And I would say that's bull. You shouldn't do it quick. And then we come ahead, and maybe we start to drift off, and we have to kick it ahead again, and then we go slow. And finally, when we get up to this point, I'm going to move it ahead. We do have to knock a little bit more speed off. We need to give it some astern propulsion. We need to drive that prop wash, astern propulsion, prop wash going up under the hull, slowing it down even more. you might have to slow down than maybe even than what you were intended, because that maybe pulled your stern off to port. Transverse thrust. So then you have to give a kick ahead. So there's this kick ahead, stop, kick astern, kick ahead, stop, kick astern, kick ahead, stop. You're just controlling that speed. You're keeping it down. So comfortable. Now I'm not at the point where I'm going to talk about how do you get from this position to how do you get to this position. The reality is you're probably going to get a couple of tugs are going to come in on you, and you're going to use tugboats to dock that ship. When you finally get there, those two tugs are going to come into place. They're going to come into place up here, and they're going to help you get in there. You are a 60,000 ton vessel. You're a big ship. You're not a little boat. You're a big ship. And so you are going to use those, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 horsepower tugs to work you into position. So that's what I was trying to get at. It's the way you're going to read it, the way you're going to be able to be tested on it or to assessed, and the way you're going to give that information back to me. That's what I was trying to convey. Now, what I want to do is I want to talk to you about the size of ships when it comes to tonnage. And no matter what profession, what license track you're in, you're either, if you're doing ship docking and you're on the tugboat or you're on the ship, I think this is important. I'm looking at this scale, and it says deadweight tons, DWT, and we're looking at that. We see we have tankers. Now, these are really big tankers. These are 380,000 deadweight ton tankers, and the other one is 250,000, 250,000 tons. You may not know, but those are considered the really big tankers. So let's keep that in mind. And as we go down through, we have smaller ones. The tankers that come into Bucksport that you see are down here in this category of 60,000 tons. And then we got some big bulk. A big bulk cargo ship is 190. That's a big one. And here we have smaller ships coming down 20,000 tons. Just look at the difference between a bulk cargo ship, a bulker, and something as big as up here in the tanker. Cargo ships, general cargo ships, a car carrier, only 12,000. It's a lot of airspace in there. And that explains now, deadweight tonnage is actually a measurement of weight. And then we got container ships, and container ships are doing, these are the number of TEUs for it, but here's the tonnage. So lots of sort of airspace on a container ship as well. And we need to become familiar with those. I think I want to go on, and I want to put the next slide there, and I want to go in and I want to say, look at these length between perpendiculars. Look at the length of the ship. And so these tankers, by the way, these are in meters. So I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to say that's 355 meters. Well, every 100 meters is 328 feet. So my goodness, that's well over. That's somewhere around a 12 or 1,150, 1,200 foot tanker. And as we come down to this container ship, we're talking about a container ship which is 700 feet, give or take, 700 feet long, 800 feet long. So we're down into that category there. It's not the large, like the Maersk ships, but they are certainly a big thing in the harbor. We could also look at the breadth of the ship, a 64 meter breadth, 64 meters. 64 meters. So let's see, 50 meters is 164 feet. I've already done the math here. We're talking about what does that really translate to? When somebody says the ship has a beam of 64 meters, think about that. 50 meters is 100, 32, 42, 48. Man, that's like, this ship has, I think I'm doing this straight in my head, about a 200-foot beam. A beam of 200 feet, a breadth of 200 feet. Now just get your head around that and say to yourself, that size ship is up there above 250, 300,000 deadweight tons. And the tanker that you see in Bucksport, much different. Here's the tanker in Bucksport. It's got a length, well, okay, that's going to be around 600-700 feet. with a breadth of 32 meters, and that translates to, about 90 feet, maybe 100-foot beam. That's what that tanker, that Irving tanker that you see in Bucksport. So I can't emphasize this enough. As professional mariners, you want to be conversant, not just with the book knowledge of what this deadweight tonnage and different gross tonnage and what is net tonnage, but I want you to be able to translate it to something that you can visualize in your mind. And what about the draft? Let's take the last column here. We'll go right back to that big tanker with a 23-meter draft. That's about 82, 83-foot draft. I was just doing this, the calculation in my head. Let's say it's an 82 or 83-foot draft. Imagine that. That ship, by the way, that ship never goes to port. There are no ports. That ship is unloading into lighters, or it's going to an offshore mooring station, and most likely it's not even tying up at a mooring station. It's just lightering while they're underway, steaming slowly down in the Gulf of Mexico, far enough offshore so they got deep enough water to do that. I mean, there's some amazing stuff happening there. And again, by comparison, we're talking about 12 meters for that ship that comes into Bucksport, 10 or 12 meters, a 32, 35-foot draft. And when it comes into Bucksport, it's sort of almost very often it's in a half load condition. So it probably has less draft than that. They're dropping off cargo. And by the way, that Irving ship comes down from St. John, Newfoundland at the refinery, or maybe it comes from New Brunswick, from the refinery in New Brunswick, and it's just bringing the oil in onto the coast of Maine. So that's what's happening there. So one of the things that I said I was going to talk about in here was, it was the perception of risk, the understanding of, or the perception of motion, and that understanding of what that risk could be. But before I talk about that, let's do the attendance here. So, by the way, could I have the following people answer up by text? Let's do by text. Make sure you identify yourself who this is. So here we go. Listen up. Jeff Allen, Tyler Hall, Tyler McKinney, and Patrick Whittle. Those are going to be from one section. Answer up by text. I watched the video. And let's do Henry Adams. Let's do Griffin DeMarteau. Let's do Stephen Sarkis in the next group. And this is for attendance: John Berg, Mott Blair, Corey Henault, James Salerno, and I think that will do it for this time, so that random attendance that we're going to do. And send that to me to text and say, tell me, you give me your name, I'll check it off, and I'll say, and I'll see that you were here. Talking about this perception of motion, that's a key. I think the first thing I asked you in class on Monday was, the biggest trick is knowing when to slow down, when you're approaching the berth, knowing when to drop your speed up. Now, I gave you a rule of thumb. It's not something you can do just by me telling you. It's not some magic number. In one sense, it's like trying to teach a person to ride a bike by reading a book. Then to have an appreciation of how much it's going to hurt when you fail. You have to experience something. You almost need to hit the dock too hard. You need to have a little bit of an accident, or at least you need to have a little bit of something in your heart there that says, oh crap, I'm going too fast. This is not going to be good. It needs to get your attention inside your head. Now, I'm speaking almost psychology here in order to say that that's what you're going to need to process it. I like this Calvin and Hobbes, and Calvin was always, crashing. And Calvin's always making some comment as he picks it up. So it's going to be, I'm going to learn how to ride this bicycle even if it kills me. Okay, you can let go. And Calvin and Hobbes, and they're going along, and then let go, and the whole thing falls apart. And, he says, did it kill you? Not yet. Not yet. It hasn't. it's decided to maim me first. Well, you might need to be maimed, by some of those dockings that you'll do, or at least you'll feel like you're gonna feel that way. I'm not sure if I'm making the point well or not, but over time you will gain that understanding. In the PowerPoint, you can link to this video, and if you give it a little bit of time, it's a little bit slow to respond. But and I realize that what it says up here, it says this might be a little overly dramatic, but it does make the point of you have to suffer a little bit of the consequences, and you have to learn by your mistakes, and that's why we're doing the lab. The point is that we want you to have an appreciation for when something is starting to go wrong, and that's what it says on the bottom. Have an appreciation to be able to pick up on the fact that you're going too fast, that something's going to go wrong, and you need to act quicker rather than later. An appreciation for when something is starting, keyword starting to go wrong, so you have enough chance to fix it. To recognize what won't work and have a sense for how much possible pain you're going to suffer because of your action or inaction, maybe. You can't back down too soon. You have to go to the doc sooner or later, but you have to be in that sweet spot where you can do it. So I would encourage you just to watch this. Yeah, I know it's kind of overly dramatic, but just watch it and give me some feedback what you thought of it. Was it too corny, or was it worth? Maybe you can just share it with some friends who don't go to school here, and you can tell them this is what your life is like. I think you'll enjoy it. I'm not going to give up on this topic. Well, I will when I get to the end of the slides. For captains and for mates, for pilots, the big question is when do I act and when do I wait? Now, I'm purposely putting these words in here because feel free to quote this when you write an answer on the exam. If I lead you down this path, feed me this one back. For captains, mates, for pilots, the big question is when do I act and when do I wait? And how does that relate to the go slow, think ahead, and be patient? In other words, how does a person find the balance of knowing when to respond or / when to take action or when to be patient and wait? And yeah, I'm asking, what are your thoughts? This is response timing. That's a short version of everything that I've just spent the last 5 minutes talking about. And you'll probably agree. The only way that you can get there is from experience. And experience comes from a lot of different places. You're getting experience, but I want to go one more slide and explain. So experience comes from an experience, that thing which is in the middle, this sweet spot. You all know this is a Venn diagram. And so, this is where the rubber meets the road, right here in the middle. This is the sweet spot. And so you practice, and that's what you're doing. And you ask questions, and you think. You have a mind of inquiry, and you read and you think and you study it, and you talk it over amongst yourselves. You do all those things. But the other part of this, and the reason that you're all in lab and that you're cycling through this, is so that you can watch and you can observe others. You can say that worked and that didn't work, and that's going to become more and more true until you get on the tugboat. You watch and you observe. So everything that we do is pointed at, practiced, to inquire and to observe, and that's going to just help you being able to internalize and get that sweet spot so you are able to do this stuff. Well, this is it's easy to say that. I'm going to come back on cam. It's easy to say that. And by the way, I'm going to turn on the pot of coffee, and there we go. The coffee is brewing, so I'm gonna finish this up. By the way, it's Tuesday here. I was down in class. I had freshmen this afternoon. Let's see, I gave you your attendance, so if anybody who didn't hear it or skipped through it, you want to go back and check that attendance. It was about 5 minutes ago in the video, and I'm asking the ones I called their names, send me a text that says I watched it, and so on and so forth, and be forthright and forthcoming. And so I think we're all set. There we go. Class is over for the week. There's your stuff. I'll see you next week. We'll be moving on to the next topic. And next week we do, it is time already for that first exam. I'll give you some more information about that. Fair seas, following winds, all that kind of stuff. Take care, and I'll see you on Monday. Bye-bye.